Hello and welcome to Ewe Sew You. My name's Zoe and this is my channel all about the crafty bits and pieces I get up to. I knit, I sew, I spin on a spindle, I dabble in weaving from time to time, and anything else that takes my crafty fancy. But today we're taking a look at all the things I've been working on in October, so grab a brew, put your feet up and let's get started. So welcome back to any returning viewers and to any new viewers, a very warm welcome to you. As I mentioned in the opening to the video, we're taking a look at my October makes this week. So let's get started with what I am wearing. This is my finished Jethro cardigan, which is a crochet and knitting project. It's the pattern by Tannis Fibre Arts. So you crochet all these granny squares and join them together and then knit the ribbing and the sleeves. I got this finished the night before my niece's 18th birthday. So I wore it to her party. It's obviously not been blocked, but it's fine. The pattern calls for 4 buttons. In fact, the pattern calls for 5 buttons. I chose to put 4 on because the 5th one came up too high for my liking. So I have had to close up a buttonhole for that. The buttons I've used are slightly larger than what is called for in the pattern because the small ones just didn't cut it, keeping it closed. So upgraded to a larger button and that seems to work fine. So yeah, really pleased with that, glad I got it done. I have worked the granny squares in West Yorkshire spinners, fingering weight 4-plies, their signature 4-ply, held double to make a DK weight, and then I've used West Yorkshire spinners Croft, which is a DK weight yarn, for the knitted elements and the joining of the squares together. I have done a video on how I worked the continuous crochet join, which I will link up, I think it's this side, little iCard thingy here. For you to have a look at, see how I worked it. There are variations on a theme of how to do a continuous crochet join, some with the granny stitch, like the one I've used here, some are lacier, more decorative for joining different sorts of squares, so you have at it. For this pattern I would recommend using the granny stitch because it creates the last row of the granny squares as you're joining everything together and it just looks less fussy than if you were to do a different style of join, and it is the method that's called for in the pattern as well. So yeah, really pleased with that. I think the sleeves will lengthen out ever so slightly when I do finally get around to blocking it. It sits pretty much on my hips, so the length is fine. There's a slight sort of bomber jacket feel to the bottom of the stand-up, you might see that. So it sort of flops out a little bit over the bottom ribbing. I think that's because I took the pattern at its word and used the count of stitches that she told you to pick up along the bottom of the granny squares rather than every single stitch. I think if I'd done every single stitch that would sit a bit more flatly, but I actually quite like the sort of bomber jacket feel that it gives it. So yeah, quite pleased with that. I did do every single stitch for the bottom band ribbing though, so that sits more smoothly from the crochet squares into the neckline. So yeah, really pleased with that. So that's Jethro by Tannis Fibre Arts. Highly recommend. Okay, so that's my first finished object as well as what I'm wearing. So let's take a look at the other finished objects that I have done this month, or that I've finished this month. The first one being the card that I made for my niece for her 18th birthday, which was also finished very shortly before we went to her party. It's a couple of days in advance, I think, rather than the night before. So here is a picture of the cross-stitch card that I made for my niece. This is a kit. I can't remember who the kit was by. It might have been Bothy. It possibly wasn't. If I've still got the packaging, I'll put that on screen. It's a rather cute little mouse on a champagne cork celebratory cross-stitch, which is very sweet. It's on a 14 count Ada. The Ada that came in the kit is blue, so I stuck with that. And there's a few beads in the kit as well. Don't know whether I dropped some of them or whether they just weren't quite enough in the pack, but we're 2 or 3 short from the pattern itself, but it doesn't really show in the finished product, so that's fine. So why would I pick a mouse on a champagne cork for my niece's 18th birthday? Because we're British and 18 is the legal drinking age here. So she likes Prosecco. I discovered this at the wedding in July. And under British drinking laws, if you're having a hot meal or if you're in a private event, you can drink younger than 18. But normal sort of going out for a night out, that's 18 upwards. So she has had Prosecco before. We had some Prosecco the night before because private event, and she certainly enjoyed that. So yes, there's Prosecco at her party. There are a few other drinks there. My sister had done oodles of baking, supplemented with hot cakes. Unsurprisingly, they live in Bulgaria, but they have a house in the UK as well, so the party was at a house in the UK. But they'd only been over for a couple of days, so not much time for tons of baking, which she'd done quite well. So yeah, so that was my niece's 18th birthday party, and the card and the cardigan all done in time for that. The other finishes that I've got, there are videos available for most of, which again I will link as relevant on the screen. So we're going to start with my tree decorations, which I'm going to leave on the tree. So there are 2 videos for these. So we have some beech leaves, some oak leaves, and some acorns to provide seasonal decoration for my little tree. And I originally bought this tree to be like an overflow at Christmas. I have a colour theme for my main tree. So this little tree takes all the decorations that don't fit the main theme. But rather than pack it away, so I'll leave it out during the year and decorate it for the seasons. Autumn is the first season that I've actually got around to finishing decorations for. I have some spring decorations in progress, but this is the first season that I've actually finished something for. They're all crochet. It's all from a free pattern by Attic24, which I will link in the description down below. And as I say, there are a couple of videos for these decorations, little vlog style videos up already on the channel over the past few weeks. I'll pop that down there out of the way. The next finished object is also something that you have seen before, and that is my little mini cat in a witch's hat. This is a Happy Berry pattern. It's available for free, or you can purchase a printable download, but you can work it off the website for free. It's rather sweet. I'm sure I messed up the count somehow because the legs aren't perfectly matched up, but it's fine. The hat I definitely messed up the count on because I didn't have the right number of stitches at the end, but again, it's fine. I quite like the way it's turned out. So that's my little cat. Now in this pattern there was also instructions for a pumpkin and a cauldron, which I have also made. So here is my tiny pumpkin. The mini cat hat and this pumpkin, and also the cauldron that I'm going to show you in a moment, they're all made from just little tiny scraps of yarn. They really don't use much yarn at all. They don't take very long to do. You'll see me making some more of these pumpkins. The other bit that's in the pattern is a cauldron. I use the same size hook for this cauldron. I've got some toy filling in it for steam and some scrap yarn in it for potions. But I held this yarn double. So it's the same yarn as I used for the hat, but I held double instead of single. I had the single for the hat. I have worked some buttonhole stitches around the 2 strands that I used to make the handle just to give it a bit more structure. But because I used the yarn double, even though it's the same hook that I used for my mini cat and my pumpkin, the cauldron is significantly larger than the cat. This might be because the yarn was held double. It might be that the cauldron is just written bigger. I'm not 100% certain, but yeah. So yeah, a little bit out of proportion, but that's fine. The pattern does ask you to put scrap red and yellow and orange yarn underneath for a fire, which I haven't done so far. I might crochet a little circle marked with picot edges or something for a fire to put it on, rather than just scraps of yarn, because otherwise I'll have to find new scraps of yarn each year when I get it out, whereas if I just crochet some fire to the bottom of the cauldron or a mat to sit it on, it's always going to be there. But yeah, so that's my little cauldron, my little tiny pumpkin, and my little mini cat in a witch's hat, all finished, ready to decorate for Halloween. So the Halloween selection of decorations will get added to year on year, I imagine. So I might do some more pumpkins before Halloween this year, but we'll see. So okay, so that's the finished objects, all there, all complete. Doesn't sound like a lot when you say, oh, cardigan, a cross stitch card, some leaves, some acorns, and a mini cat. But actually, in terms of numbers of individual items, there's quite a few of them, so we're quite pleased with that. And I've also been making progress on one of my ongoing knitting projects, just the one, that's okay. So I've been working on my Wellsbury sweater. So this is an and other knits pattern, and it's an interesting construction. So here we have the completed back that you've seen before. I do need to do some ripping back because I made a mistake and I've got some bulging because one of my stripes is wider than the others. So we'll be ripping that back at some point. But I am coming towards the end of the front. So I've just got one more colour stripe to do on the front and then the ribbing at the bottom. Then I'll go back and rip out the back to fix the bulge. I'm not looking forward to ripping out that much with the mohair. It's Hulst garn, super soft, and drops of silk mohair held together. But I have had to rip back the majority of this stripe because I could see that I was starting to make the same mistake. So I ripped it back and reworked out how often I was connecting at the centre seam. But yeah, really interesting construction because you're knitting half of a front and half of a back at a time, and then you're joining them together. Once the front is done and the back is fixed, I can then do the side seams and work on the sleeves. There's not a huge amount left to do on this particular project, and with it all being stocking stitch, it's a nice sort of in front of the TV project or sit and read project. It's not too taxing. The sleeves I think will be very straightforward, popcorn type knitting. So yeah, looking forward to getting that finished and being able to wear it during the cold weather because mohair makes things nice and snuggly. So yeah, pleased with how it's turning out. I think it's going to probably sit around about the waistband, which given that I generally reach for trousers is fine. A little bit longer is also good, but the way that Hulst garn tends to block, it has a tendency to shrink in length and grow in width. The mohair doesn't though, so that should mitigate some of it. So it's probably going to end up around about the waistband, which is fine for me. It covers all the bits that need covering, and if I do decide to wear it over a dress or a skirt, if I happen to reach for that, then all good. So yeah, that's the Wellsbury. Making progress, enjoying it. I've been knitting on it whilst I've been finally watching the Vampire Diaries. I binge watched those, having already seen the originals when they first aired and having watched Legacies recently. Thought I probably should go back and watch the series that set it all off, having not seen that when it broadcast. Thoroughly enjoyed that. Been watching a few things featuring members of the cast because binge watching leads to obsessions. I've also been rewatching Lost because I haven't seen that since it first aired 20 years ago, 25 years ago. It still gets weird towards the end. I'm on season 5 at the moment. We're in the very sort of, I'm not quite sure where you're going with this stage. But in terms of the visuals and the way it was made, it's aged quite well. I've rewatched Strange New Worlds and I've just started Agatha all along. So we're doing well on the watching stuff. Got plenty of things to keep my brain occupied whilst I'm doing stocking stitch. So yeah, that's my main work in progress for October because I've been finishing stuff. So plans moving forward. Obviously I want to get the Wellsbury finished fairly soon because then I can start swatching and doing the maths for the Plutalopi sweater, the yarn that I bought in Iceland whilst I was on honeymoon. I've got my Barragan to work on as well that I haven't touched for a little while. So that's a wrap, so I'd like to get that done by Christmas if I can. And then it's a question of working through all the whips that I've got upstairs in the craft room, out of sight and out of mind, quite frankly. And I've got some cross stitching to get done, some needle felting to get done, some weaving to get done. Lots of stuff that's been on the go for ages, and some of it is stuff that you guys have been asking about that I haven't touched in months. So yeah, I really need to get back to that. So yes, that's the project, is to keep working through all the stuff that I've got on the go and finish a few things off. Not start too many big projects until I've got a chunk of the ones that are on the go out of the way first. Obviously the Plutalopi is the exception. It's a yarn that's designed for cold weather, so I'd like to get that done by Christmas if I can. If it's January, February, that's not too much of a problem because it'll still be cold at that point of the year. But it's not a sort of sweater that I'm going to be able to wear during the spring and the summer, and probably not the autumn either because of the type of yarn that it is. It's essentially going to be a jacket replacement. So yeah, so I do want to get that on the go. But I don't want to start too many new, not garment projects and blanket projects and that kind of thing until I've got a few things out of the way. little quick projects, not so much of an issue, so little tiny decorations, small cross stitches, small embroideries, that kind of thing, not too much of a problem. They give your hands a break from the knitting needles as much as anything. Some of them are the needle felting projects from last year's advent calendar, so I want to work through some of those ahead of Christmas this year so they can be on display. So that's my thinking for moving forward. So it's a little bit of a short and sweet one this week, but thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I'd love to see you in my next video. Until then, there's this one here that may be of interest to you, and I will see you soon. But until then, happy crafting and bye-bye for now.